Okay, folks, good morning and welcome to Swing Trading Today. This is Bob Desmond and it is 5:02 in the a.m. Eastern Standard Time, June the 12th. Let's kick things off with a trade that we closed out yesterday, which is BIDU. BIDU was an extreme oversold trade, which we played to the long side because the downtrend was unsustainable. Now, we first discussed BIDU here on the 17th of May, and I posted on the performance tab a video of what I had to say prior to entering that trade on the 20th when we gapped down. At that point in time, we had RSI on the 20th of roughly 12 on RSI, and I did mention we could go lower, and we certainly did. We built a position within this consolidation. We broke out and we booked profits yesterday. And the reason why we booked profits yesterday is because the prior day we saw some topping action on not just BIDU, but on the market as a whole. You saw a wick, shadow candlestick, call it cupcakes, it doesn't matter. It was a sign of profit taking into strength. And that haunted me into yesterday's trade. And as we began to rip higher yesterday morning, let's go to a 15-minute chart. As we began to rip higher yesterday morning, leaning into the third standard deviation Bollinger Band, it was first out, best out, book our profits and move to the sidelines because we were overbought in RSI. The market was semi-shaky at best. Let's bring up the trip Qs. The trip Qs gapped up higher. And on this 15-minute 9:30 bar, that was all she wrote for the day. Now, BIDU, which has underperformed the triple Qs and the S&P 500, continued higher. What's changed about BIDU? Nothing. So the decision was made. Let's book profits, move to the sidelines, and we look for the next best opportunity. So we raised cash yesterday. Now let's segue over into the economic data that's coming out this morning. So this morning at 8:30 a.m., we're going to get the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. Yesterday, we saw the Producer Price Index released, and it came out less than the prior month. The Producer Price Index is a measure of inflation at the producer level. The question is, if there was inflation on the Producer Price Index, was that inflation pushed to the consumer and it would be reflected on the CPI? Now, on Friday, we get retail sales. That's a number to watch. And this one I always find laughable, the Consumer Sentiment Index, which is always high. Why is it always high? It's because consumers who are drowning in debt are still given more debt to hang themselves with, and as long as they have another nickel to spend on that credit card, they're feeling pretty good. So I don't read all too much into the Consumer Sentiment Index because once rates begin to move higher and credit dries up, you're going to see consumer sentiment drop like a rock. Let's move on to the pre-market activity. All right, let's begin with the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is down this morning. No great shock after yesterday's price action. It was a fairly bearish day, a reversal day. But I wasn't willing to go shorting the market just yet. The volume was very light. We have the Federal Reserve meeting next week. And on that light volume ahead of economic data, they can certainly manipulate this market. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the CPI data is coming out later on this morning. If the data comes out weak, meaning inflation is less than expected, you're probably going to see a rebound on stocks. Why is that? Because it gives the Federal Reserve the room it needs to cut rates in July, September, maybe December. Whereas if it comes in hot, they're going to have a hard time explaining why they are cutting rates into an inflationary environment. So while we're down this morning, I would be wary as to whether or not we close here. And we'll be looking for a rally through this upper band of resistance. Taking a look at the S&P 500 futures, we are down just shy of a quarter percentage point. Yesterday, you can see on this 4-hour bar, we reversed. We had rallied up and through resistance. We closed there on a 4-hour basis, but then we were rejected. We couldn't hold our mud above that level. And now we are attempting to find a floor here at this support level. But at current, we are down below support, at least on a 4-hour basis. But again, volume has been light. If we get the light CPI data, a weak number, that will give the Federal Reserve the room it needs to come out with dovish statements and to press this market higher. Taking a look at the U.S. dollar, the dollar this morning is weak. We are coming off the lows of the session. I've been watching this RSI on a 4-hour basis, and it's just been consolidating. An orderly pullback. Now, if the CPI data comes out hot, meaning higher than expected, it's going to back the Federal Reserve into a bit of a corner. I don't think that ultimately they're going to care. I think that they forecasted that they are willing to let inflation run hot, and they will ultimately cut rates. But in the short term, you may see a rally in the dollar. And what that will mean for commodities in that the very short term, commodities such as gold, they'll come under a bit of pressure. And you can see that gold is up this morning on dollar weakness. And I mentioned over the weekend on best stock charts and the week ahead commentary with members that I expected a pullback in gold this week, and we got that pullback. Now, I even went as far as admitting to members last night on Market Wrap that I may have gotten too cute for my own good because I was looking for a pullback on the NUGT to around the $18 to $17.50 levels. Bring up that chart. And it looks as though I'm going to be disappointed this morning because while I predicted the pullback, it doesn't appear that I'm going to get my own way in terms of price action. But this is pre-market activity. The CPI data can change this price action. We are currently long. If the shares press higher here and they close strong, I'll be more than happy to add more to our portfolio. We already have a fairly significant position in the NUGT. So members, more to come. Let's see how the CPI data rolls out this morning. Let's bring up silver. Silver is up this morning. It's off the highs of the session. We are long of silver. We'll be looking to add more to our USLV trade. Ideally, we get a pullback and a retest of this breakout point on a 4-hour basis. And that will give us the opportunity to add more to the USLV trade. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still hovering just shy of the 8,000 mark. It's up about $20. It was higher. We were over 8,000 overnight, but we've pulled back yet again. And that is it for this morning, folks. Everybody have a profitable trading day. Members, I'll be in contact later on today.